Okay, so Shireen, how do you see your relationship with artists? Is it familiar, pragmatic, more professional? When
Yeah, so of course it differs with one artist to another, and so artists are, first of all, if you are a gallerist, it's not something that it's not, it's like say the banker with his client or whatever. The different relationships that people have with their the people they work with. So with an artist and a gallerist, it's a very unique dynamic, and it's not something that um, can be replicated anywhere else. And I think in my case, it let's go back to when I did the 25-year exhibition. I met an artist called Atul Dodia for the first time, and he was part of the show. He was my mom's pick for that show, and it was his first coming out into the thing. So that was the first sort of my first friendship at the time with Atul and Anju, his wife, and it was the beginning of something that was quite independent from my what my parents would have had with their artists.
okay,
So while I had this wonderful relationship that I talked about with Raza, it was much more a child with a senior person. Here it was two, in some way, two people of the same age.
contemporary.
Me coming into the gallery, Atul then coming into the gallery to become a professional artist with us for the first time. It would be his first solo show, and it was my first solo show of organizing. And at some point, my mom sort of slowly started giving up the reins, and it was quite wonderful when I think back that she was kind of not holding on to a position that I'm the one who should be doing this. And parents do that. It's not like, but so that was the first sort of sense of of course it's a friendship, but it's also a professional relationship. And with artists, first of all, there's a lot of it's very open. So what we say to each other, what we understand of each other, is like it's very deep. So if I go to the studio, I know everything about his sisters or the parents, and I know there's a lot of information, not that I seek, but it's just a very natural sort of relationship that you
Right.
know everything about the person.
But you must have to draw boundaries because it is a professional
Yeah,
relationship
but
to
I'm
some
just saying
point.
that but I'm just saying there's a lot of sharing, and that sharing, I mean, we're very clear about our politics, we're very clear about so many things, maybe even what music they listen to. Um, so it is all that, but that said, artists are very, very particular about about their own work and how we then take it over, because it's like they've worked in a studio setting in isolation for 2 years, and then it comes into a gallery. So especially today, in today's world where the competition is much more, you can't take for granted and be slipshod about it, because that's one thing that artists do not tolerate.
Okay.
They're extremely particular about the way it's presented, who's going to be writing about it, um, uh, like, just how you're even going to make a PDF. I mean, I'm just saying in today's world, yeah, the way that you present is not just in a gallery, it's also so much goes out through presentation, electronically, through emails, through newsletters, through PDFs. So much gets sold or seen outside of a gallery. So all these, I mean, every detail, so whether it's your press release, whether it's your wall text, the color of the wall, the way the presentation, the vinyl, everything is of a very, very high professional level. Your understanding is regardless. I mean, obviously, has to be, you have to be on top of it. Your staff has to be on top of it. Sometimes I'm having an exhibition, I'm nervous about it. Like I'll, get them together and explain the relationship I have with this person. Like at this point, I have an exhibition of an artist who's passed away, but the wife is a legend by herself. And it's very, very important that that she is respected, even though her husband is not there. That I was nervous that that we don't perform, we outperform. So it is kind of like this lady, her name is Geeta Kapoor. She may stay in my house. We're extremely friendly, but that's one level, So, but on another level, if I'm not professional, then
yeah, you feel like perhaps you've let the artist down because they spend years preparing.
That's too small a thing. It's like artist down is it's much more than that. You just have to, because it's it's like art out of a studio is then becomes your responsibility. So you have to be very conscious about every single aspect of how.
And are they involved?
Very much.
Down to every detail.
Yeah. They're sometimes so involved that they know that, Atul's studio will actually even, he envisages, if he's made the work, he envisages how it's going to be displayed. So sometimes it's a jugalbandi where I may participate with him. I do, but sometimes he's very clear, and I'm just talking he. It could be anybody,
right.
So it changes. Yeah.
I remember an installation by Dhruvi Acharya that she spent. How long did she spend putting that installation up?
In the gallery
itself?
In
the gallery, yeah.
I mean, first of all, it must have taken her about a year to make.
Correct.
And then it was about her husband, who had passed away and fallen off a horse. And, a 40-year-old artist has lost her 44-year-old husband. So that kind of relationship and regard that we as a gallery have to give is not, that's a whole other level. It has to be personal
for you as well.
Yeah,
right?
That's a whole other level. So, you completely, I don't know, there's so many, it's very personal, but it's beyond everything personal, it has to be super professional.
Correct. We spoke earlier about how you were drawn to South Asian artists, even when in your earlier days in London. Do you only show Indian artists now, or do you also have international artists and in your gallery? So, and how do you bring it together?
Yeah, so it's an interesting question. We in the gallery, I have kept a focus to two things. One is it's predominantly Indian, but it's also predominantly contemporary.
Okay.
So when I say that, it means that I do not show Raza or Hussain or what was my legacy. I don't have them. I mean, of course, now they're not there, but even in terms of just being in the secondary market. So there are two things that galleries work with. One is the primary market and one is the secondary market. And the primary market is contemporary, so my Jitish Kalat or my Anju Dodia and Mithu Sen and artists that I work with currently is the primary contemporary market. I do not work with what was my legacy at all. Okay. And that was a decision I took because somehow I was just young. I was like, because I was young, I was in the moment of a very interesting time in contemporary art. I wanted to show people that were of our time. And so it's maybe a financially stupid decision, but I continued to work with artists of my time. And sorry, say that again, the question?
But showing artists that are.
So I basically showed artists, I show art in Indian contemporary art. And I actually can name only two that are not Indian. One is one of Pakistan's most important, one of the most important artists called Rashid Rana, who lives in Lahore, is very, very strongly into pedagogy, teaches in amazing college. He's the dean of the college, but he continues to be a fantastic artist. The other is that I've recently taken on is an artist called Dana Awartani. She is half Saudi Arabian and half Palestinian. And I felt like in some way, the program has to speak. So when I choose artists, it's also about, like just say you have, and just to an audience that doesn't know about art, if I start putting, of course you can make a bunch of summer flowers that are of different colors, but there's a certain kind of coordination in the way this is arranged, right? There's shades of green, there's white, there's thing. So I've never thought of it like this as artists being a bunch of flowers, but if you look at this, there is a way that a gallery might look at a cohesive way that you choose artists. So so if you have one artist and you have another one, somewhere that new artist needs to speak to your stable of artists that you already have. So those choices are quite thought through, quite difficult. You're not at that moment sure, because it's a young artist that you're taking on, how that's going to go. But that's generally what the way that I work, and I think my success lies in that, in the fact that the gallery has a very, very strong, cohesive program, and we call it program in terms of who we show.
But to me, it seems that it has been something that's been passed on through generations. Your father came, to know these new artists, and he showcased them, and made a success of it. But
I think my program is much more cohesive than my parents. Yeah, because there weren't that many galleries at the time, so there was a much more democratic, much more open-hearted, much more. They didn't have such strict rules as I do. I do have much more guarded rails as to who I show.
And what about your artists? Do they also feel restricted?
No, they don't. I feel like my artists need to like what else I do. Okay. So I'm very, I used to be very, very particular. I mean, not very, I used to be very conscious and have my heart in my mouth when my mother used to come and see what we were doing. It was very important what she thought. And likewise, I feel like when my artists come to see a new artist, I'm always very nervous as to whether they like what I'm doing. So it is important, very, very important to me that my artists like my artists.
Okay.
And it's more
important. Same way?
It's more important to me that my artists like my artists than when my clients like my artists.
Okay.
Yeah, it is. Okay. Because that to me is a much stricter. With clients, it's too many different things. Each one has their own likes and dislikes. Okay. So there may be certain clients. I mean, I have certain clients that I feel very respectful of where and how they think. I'm not saying I'm not respectful of others, but I'm just saying I'm much more conscious about my artists.
I think as clients, they have different objectives of why they're collecting art, right?
Yeah.
Some people do it for investment, some people do it for the love of art.
Yeah.
So since we spoke about your mom and how important it was for you to know that your mom approved of your collections, we read that she had written a letter to Nehru about her concern regarding a movie that they were showing before a movie, and that how it would incite violence or teach her children that it's all right to hate a certain community. Can you tell us more about this letter?
Yeah, so this is actually, Nehru died the year I was born, 64, so this would have been
before
2 years, 62 I think, when she had taken her 3 children to see a film, and before that you always had a documentary. So you had these sort of quite long educative documentaries, and this documentary was very much against Pakistan, and my mom's, I mean, I'm amazed that even at that time, because she continued to be that person right through her life, but as a younger person, she was equally politically aware and conscious, and was kind of very disturbed by this film, and wrote this letter to Nehru because he was coming the next day and she knew about it. And she sort of said, and he was going to go to Regal Cinema to see this film or see another. I don't know what the reason for Nehru coming to Regal for was, but this, you, sir, are also going to be seeing this film. And
tell us where she gave him the letter and how.
And so she wrote this really articulate letter, which which can be shared. It's so and kind of not challenged him, but just really questioned the divisions that were being sown already between two countries who were ostensibly one. And I think way back in 60s, if you can think of that division already being so sort of strongly held. And Nehru, so she gave this letter to him while he was boarding, or either when he got off or when he was boarding, because she's actually written somewhere that I gave it to him in person, because these Congress workers would go to the tarmac, and so she slipped in, and it wasn't difficult to do that because there was no security and all, and she handed it to him. And he took it, and in 2 days, there was a reply that came by post. So it was a stamped reply. And she always kept copies of she was a very articulate writer. So she knew she was keeping very important. She knew she was a good writer. And so she kept she wrote to many people. I mean, the only person, she grew too old to write to the current Prime Minister, but I'm sure there would have been a letter. But like she wrote to Indira Gandhi, to Sonia, but to Nehru, it was very interesting because Nehru replied I won't say, it was a very strong prime ministerial statesman-like reply saying that this is a rogue state, and he kind of defended India and its position as a statesman should. And, it was a very strong defense of India versus a failed state of Pakistan. But so it's interesting that it's not today that we are. These seeds have been sown.
Of course, it is.
I mean,
very
of course,
evident.
you had partition, so yeah.
It's very evident. There are people who have stories about it. It's horror stories, and there are some which are heartwarming stories about how they were protected, and
yes,
it's trauma. So with the array of art fairs that are there in not only in India but all over the world, as a gallerist, how do you pick and choose where you want to represent your gallery? And please do tell a novice art lover how to begin and which are the ones that you would recommend they go to.
Yeah. So so basically art fairs is the way that is this kind of chosen way that a lot of galleries tend to put themselves into, because sometimes you could be a very good gallery in a small town in Italy, so not everybody goes to Brescia, wherever, or or even Austria, like even Vienna. It's not London or it's not New York. So you have today sort of lots of international galleries that participate in huge international fairs. But at one time there would have been like one every 4 months. Now there's one every 5 days. No, so it's like you have to. So it's like every 3 weeks there's a fair. So how does one choose, right? So somebody like me has used to do a lot more, but I've decided to cut it down. So there's one fair that I started 15 years ago, which is called Art Basel. And Art Basel is like the Rolls Royce of fairs. So it's extremely difficult to get into the fair because there's a very strict selection. But it's a very Eurocentric fair.
Okay.
And it's today with the market, it's not that easy for us to really, sell, but it's also very important for my artist to be part of a art
The
basel.
exposure, yeah.
The exposure, because the exposure in a place like an art basel means you're not just getting, you might not sell today because of the market. But what I definitely do is get eyeballs of museums and curators and, people in the art world who are very, who are interested in India. So many of my artists have got into important exhibitions because they were seen at Art Basel. Or I have sold maybe a few works from the fair, but I've only sold to an institution.
Okay.
So, I might have sold to a really important museum in Norway, which would never have heard of me sitting in Bombay. So in that sense, a fair becomes important, and an Art Basel is like a super important fair for most galleries. For me, the best and the premier fair is in India. It's called India Art Fair. It's in Delhi. It's also about 15, 16 years old. And for me, India Art Fair is a very important fair because like in Art Basel, I'm a small fish in a huge pond. Here, I'm a pretty big fish in a small pond. So when I have, and not, it might have a tenth of the number of curators and museums that go to thing, but those tenth will come with a focus on India.
Okay.
They're not coming over there, they're going to focus on the world. Here, they're coming with a focus on.
So international curators would come to art.
Yeah. And then, of course, the Indian market is thriving, and we're doing really well. So, we sell works, we get new clients, we build. So it's commercially fantastic, touch wood, but it's also internationally rewarding. The other interesting new fair in India is called Art Mumbai, and it's going to be in middle of November.
Okay.
So that's a really good place. I'm saying, if I don't know who the audience for this podcast is. Of course, podcast can go anywhere. But if you're in Delhi or Bombay and looking to buy, an art fair is possibly a good way to enter and look at art, and because you get, every gallery is there, and each one sort of has a selection of their sort of best, and so you get a sense of the gallery program. You get a sense, and you may not buy from the fair at that point, but you get introduced to the gallery, and then you get to see what you like in gallery A versus gallery B versus so you start, so we have built up an interesting clientele in Bombay of people that may not have come to the gallery earlier, but who have now started coming, So it's a good way it's a good entry point.
That's wonderful.
To learn, yeah. And right now, just as a matter of interest, I'm doing a fair in Qatar. It's Art Basel is like this conglomerate of fairs. They have got one in Hong Kong, Miami, Basel, and now in Qatar. And so we're going to be doing that as well. And I'm on the committee of the fair, so I'm interested. I also find it interesting how we as gallerists have to be very open about selecting other gallerists. I mean, it's extremely based on trust. You can't be like, oh, I mean, that's a competition gallery. No, it's a competition gallery, but they're very good.
Right.
So you have to make sure that they are given a chance and get in, So
who selects the selection committee?
Art Basel. Yeah.
So you are going to be there in Qatar this year.
Yeah, and I'm going to be showing Rashid Rana.
Rashid Rana. Okay, wonderful.
Yeah.
So with Atyan now running Chemould CoLab and entering the gallerist business for the third generation, how do you see this going for her? And how are you involved also with what she's doing?
Yeah. So yeah, it's interesting because it's CoLab is now 3.5 years old.
Wow.
And it's like, when I started with my parents, the gallery was already, my parents were older, so they were kind of ready to do the 100 other things that they were interested in, which was beyond art, with all their, like literally they had a new fad every day.
Yeah.
But with me, I'm pretty focused on my gallery. So I hold my artists, and they're very used to me. It's like so like Atyan was like, so where do I enter? am I just like going to be, I can shadow you, but that's not really what I want to do. And it's really through conversations, it's not like we plan this, but it's really through her coming and then, not exactly knowing what her role is, that the invention of
Do you see history repeating itself with her and you?
Yeah, probably it will. I mean, I'm going to grow old.
Because you came back and you didn't know where you wanted to be and what you wanted to do.
Yeah, so in that sense, even she
happened.
organically, exactly. But this Chemould CoLab was super organic, There was no big plan that we would have this. But I'm just so happy that it happened because a gallery like ours holds artists, so like say I have about 27 artists, and it's very difficult to keep introducing new artists because I have far too much to do with my present day artists, too much with exhibitions. So when you introduce a new artist, it's a huge responsibility.
So, and that's what she's doing.
And so, the gallery doesn't remain fresh when you don't always have. I mean, I do have, but I'm still like with a certain body of artists that I have grown to this, that we've grown together with. So with CoLab, it remains very fresh. It's still a Chemould brand. And, like lots of new artists every year being added. She has a residency program because the house kind of converts into, it's a flat.
Right.
It's a beautiful flat that can be a gallery and you won't know it's a flat, or it can become a home again. So for 4 months, she introduced in the year, like in summer months, she gets artists, she calls new artists, they become part of the residency and they make work there, and then they show it, that work in the gallery. So so there's a huge amount of sort of freshness, and she's very, very conscious that she doesn't want to sell to older clients. I mean, she will, but
older clients isn't your older
yeah,
clients?
I mean, she tries not to, and she just tries to develop, her young artists going to young collectors. So it's really, that's a very conscious effort, and that conscious effort is met with the fact that she prices her work at a very, very reasonable starting price. So, so it's very affordable. So her friends are buying art from her. And that's how you make collectors. That's how you create interest,
Yeah.
If you start like, at what we sell at, there's no way a young collector can come in. Here, there's this like whole band of people, and it becomes like a club, So these people post openings, they'll have dinner together. They won't know who the other is, but that's how friendships get formed. And that's how she really operates. And it's wonderful. I love the selection of artists that she has.
Yeah.
Does she run it all by me? Not really anymore. It's quite a surprise. Like this artist she's showing now, I did see his work in a residency, but I had no idea she had signed him on. Okay. And the artist called Umesh, and he's just like fabulous. So it makes me very proud that she's making her decisions not based on her mother's likes and dislikes, which are pretty strong. So now she kind of like keeps me out of it and surprises me in a good way.
Are you invited?
Of course I'm invited.
So I see the distinction between Chemould Prescott Road and Chemould CoLab. I've been to both places, and I see that Chemould CoLab does a lot of work as a community, whereas of course you show, the artists that you do who are established, and I think it's very, very commendable for someone of Atyan's age to consider and put that in place on her own.
Yeah.
And could this be a philosophy that has been passed down the generations through your parents and through you, that art brings communities together and keeps them together?
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously, it's something that it naturally sort of allows, and I mean, amongst young people, there's a different energy. So when you go to the opening, of course, it's a much smaller space, so it's really crowded, and it feels like there are many more people than mine. But actually, it's just the scale of mine is much bigger. But then there'll be music playing, and it's kind of this sort of like a vibe which could be like a club,
right?
But apart from that, she does really nice workshops, and so you bring in different people who don't come to galleries, and you do workshops that are not necessarily related to the exhibition. So it could just be a writing workshop, it could be a printmaking workshop, and photography, like how to produce photographs. I mean, the many things they keep doing.
Right.
The space sort of lends itself very easily, and people just there's a interesting sort of comfort level which they don't have.
And that's
in
how
this
you
grand,
cultivate
big space.
relationships as well, right? With
Yeah,
artists and
yeah.
collectors.
Yeah,
as well.
so you sort of like, so young people just feel more comfortable. I remember like somebody on the road when it was an art night Thursday, and we were hopping from one gallery to another, and they were hopping from experimenter to CoLab. Oh, let's go to CoLab. We won't go to that old one. It's too, like, I can't remember. I don't, but I did catch the fact that like I was some, old fuddy-duddy
Old
there.
one.
But it also made me quite happy and proud to know that, there's, yeah.
We only want our children to learn from us and grow on their own, right? Yeah, that's true. Shireen, thank you so much for being here and sharing so much with us, so much more than we ever anticipated it. You wove a story for us that started from, was it 1963, right down to 2025, and you wove it so beautifully together that we have truly an artist's canvas up there for us to see right from the beginning till the end, from your parents to now Atyan, carrying forward the legacy that your parents have put together. Most importantly for me and a lot of people who admire you is your sense of strength and community and keeping it together and being truthful and honest and having the integrity to be that way and not bending forward, backwards, no way. We are who we are, and your art and your gallery and your family speaks volumes of this for everyone in India and all over the world. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for the generosity of that. I really appreciate it. Wonderful being here. Thank you so much.